According to Buddhism, the meditation technique that consists of giving attention to the breath would have been communicated by Buddha after his enlightenment. Today, many teachers and traditions teach this technique. I'm not going to go into details about how the technique should be practiced, but there is something about this technique that we need to understand, and it's very revealing for whoever is practicing or following the path of Advaita. So the technique basically works by sitting down. You don't need to use any particular yogic posture. You sit down in a recliner or lay down, and then you begin to give attention to the breath. As you give attention to the breath, soon you will realize that you can't keep the attention there, and the attention will follow a thought or a train of thoughts, and you will be lost in the mind. And that's completely normal, absolutely. So when you realize that you are lost in thought, you bring attention back to the breath. And this, you may need to do it multiple times, many times. And it requires great patience to come back to the breath. Do not feel upset. Do not feel angry with yourself, because it's completely normal. Until perhaps after 20 minutes, 30 minutes or more, you will begin to notice that the attention has become stabilized on the breath. When that happens, it doesn't take too long, you will begin to notice a sense of expansion, like a sense of a spaciousness, like a space that is around the breath, because you are still giving attention to the breath, but you also begin to notice that there is this spaciousness around the breath. And when that happens, and only when that happens, meditation begins. Meditation is not concentration. Concentration has for purpose to stabilize the attention. Meditation is when you give attention to the divine in some specific form, in this case as consciousness. So, for a while, in this meditation, more advanced, deeper meditation, you will notice that attention is focusing on the breath, but it's also focusing in this spaciousness around. As you keep giving attention to the breath, you're abandoning the technique, and that is correct. You allow this naturally, and as you begin to give attention to the spaciousness, then concentration becomes meditation. That spaciousness is consciousness, awareness. The breath is always happening in awareness, but now the attention has been stabilized enough to be able to realize this. Is it worth to practice this? By all means. Yes, it's worth practicing it. Remember, you will need a lot of patience with yourself. Advaita, on the other hand, doesn't insist too much on the practice of meditation, because the focus is more about bringing meditation into your daily life, moment to moment. So to do that, you cannot sit down because you have things to do. And then instead of using a meditation technique, you use a pointer. It's a short sentence that you follow it with your intuition and attention, and leads you directly to give attention to the divine. So how this connects with the technique that we just that I just explained? Every object is arising also, not just the breath, but every object that is being perceived is arising in the perception, in consciousness. So you use the pointer, where is all this arising? The answer to that is arising in awareness, is arising in consciousness. And then, with this question, where is all this arising? You follow it intuitively, with the attention, and you give attention to the space, the spaciousness, where all this is arising. Same as the breath, through meditation you can realize that it's arising in that spaciousness. But now you just go there in an instant. You give attention to the space where everything is arising. And that space that I'm talking about is not what physics calls a space, the space that we can measure. You can measure the distance, the volume of a space. That space is also arising in consciousness. That space is also arising in awareness. How you can realize that? Well, simply notice that the space in front of you, just the space, no things, just the space, is being noticed in awareness. Awareness is noticing it. Without awareness, there is no space. So that's why Yogananda, in fact, said that something quite curious. He said that space is the last veil of the illusion. The last veil, because the space is an object. Awareness is prior to the space. And since I'm using the word prior, you can also use the pointer prior to this, prior to the objects that are in front of you. It's the same as saying, where is all this arising? Where is this arising? So practice this simple pointer to connect with the divine at any moment during the day. As you become more skillful with the pointer, you will go instantaneously into a relatively calm state of mind, or we could say a meditative state. It is a meditative state in the sense that you are giving attention to the divine, the awareness, consciousness, perception. So here you see the connection between the meditative traditions and Advaita, right? The same phenomena that happens in meditation, the same happens using the pointers of Advaita. It's just that one is appropriate when you sit down to meditate, the other one is throughout the day. Some traditions, in fact, they recommend to do both. You meditate as a way to calm down, get in contact with the divine, and then during the day you practice the presence of the divine through pointers, and at the end of the day you do another meditation. I'm not saying that you have to follow this routine, okay? No, that this looks more like a sadhana. I'm not saying that, but experiment and realize how true this is. That these two traditions are connected in this moment where you give attention to the spaciousness. Some people go to sleep. They lay down, and it doesn't take too long. As they are falling into sleep, they begin to feel like they become expanded, like they feel this spaciousness before falling into sleep. That I remember happening. I didn't know what was going on. It just was happening when I was a child. I was laying down, and this kind of a sphere, openness, was happening just by laying down and moving towards sleep. And I guess that many people experience that. It's not an indication of spiritual advancement or anything. Is that it's just simply that children have a more quiet mind until they get socialized, probably. They have less mental noise. My impression is that animals, they experience the same. When they are falling asleep, they experience expansion into the divine because they have a very quiet mind usually, especially cats. It's amazing to see them meditating. They begin to purr, and they are in meditation there. They are likely into spaciousness. I cannot feel what they are feeling, but by looking at what's going on, you immediately begin to suspect this guy is meditating, purring and meditating, feeling that spaciousness. Okay, I hope this helps. Practice this simple pointer. Where is all this arising? Where is this arising? Very simple. Follow the pointer and you will begin to notice that space underneath all things. And that's another pointer, underneath all this. Underneath all this. If you want to learn this meditation technique and become more proficient in the practice of the presence throughout the day, and also doing some internal work to attain a calmer mind by releasing, letting go of things that are making the mind restless. If you're interested in doing that work with a coach, which is something that I highly recommend because that was the experience here, write to me. I will leave you my email below the description of this video. As you become proficient in practicing the presence, your life improves. Your mind becomes more quiet. Metaphysically, when the mind is quiet and you are in a good space, which there is no better space than the spaciousness of consciousness, metaphysics says that you are in a good attractor point, a point of attraction. And because you are in a good point of attraction, the external life, the content of life, becomes more friendly to you. So things that you need come to you easier. Things that even you want may come easier to you. And sometimes needs that you don't even know that you have will show up before you realize that you had that need. That's because you are vibrating, functioning in a good point of attraction according to metaphysics. So instead of focusing on how I can attract things to my life, you focus on how can I sustain a beautiful state of spaciousness, and the rest happens automatically. Take care. Bye.